Hey friends, welcome to the Tennis and Bagels podcast. This is the first one of 2024, first one in over a month now. But well, we needed a bit of a rest. What can I say? Like the tennis season is very long and the off season is very short. Luckily, we don't have to be traveling around like the players and some other journalists and whatnot. But I still want to be here and like enjoying tennis. And we have been catching up. If you follow us on Twitter, you can see that we've been tweeting this entire time since December 31st. When the 2024 season started. But yeah, we are midway through the Australian Open. We already had like some notable matches, some really good first rounds, some really good second rounds, some really good third rounds already. Some big upsets, and some of my predictions are already completely gone. But some are still alive, so we'll see what happens. And yeah, I'm here with Owen today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk about this tournament. How are you?
All right, just yeah, trying to catch as much as I can on the Australian Open. It gets harder and harder with every year passing. But yeah, those 3 a.m. Alarm clocks, I'm not even setting them up before I used to set them and just kind of go back to sleep. Now I don't even bother. Um, Lost a match. I don't think I could watch a single one of Bia Haddad Maia's match, she's now my current favorite player on both tours. And she lost this morning, 3 a.m. To Timofeeva. I would say that was probably the better way to pronounce it. But good performance overall. I'm happy that she got there. She had a really good chance to reach the second week, but it wasn't to be this time around. But whatever. She has a good time and good legs for the rest of the season. And yeah, so yeah, what are some notable, I think, first week, which by the way, some of the matches as we speak are going to start in about 1.5 hours. So by the time that you listen to this podcast, some of the third rounds would already have happened because it's only probably coming out tomorrow morning on the Saturday, the 20th of January. So excuse us if we don't know the results in advance. So that's it. But yeah, so what are some first, I guess, impressions of the first week of the Australian Open? Any of the predictions changed? Any of the confirmations of predictions that you've made?
Well, both of my picks for the titles are still in. I will say that. Carlos Alcaraz and Coco Gauff through. I think Gauff is into the fourth round. Alcaraz is into the third round, and he plays again tonight, I think. But the match that sticks out to me the most is Iga Swiatek, Danielle Collins, because oh my god, that was amazing. The world #1 coming within 2 games of going out in the second round, and comes back from a double breakdown in the third set, wins 5 games in a row. Collins with a bit of a collapse, but what a match! It was that was pretty awesome. Were you able to catch that?
I watched the tail end of the second set and the whole of the third set. It was really good. Yeah. I couldn't believe the level of Collins was putting in that match. I didn't expect her to play that well, seriously.
Yeah, because before the match, I was thinking, I remember the match that Collins beat Iga at the Australian Open 2 years ago, destroyed her in the semis. And I was thinking, okay, so like maybe it's a matchup thing and she can do this again. And then I look at their head to head. And since then, twice Iga has beaten her and only lost 1 game. There's a 6-0, 6-1 and a 6-1, 6-0. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe not. And then, I'm watching. Iga wins the first set. Okay. And then Collins just, in the second set, she just caught fire and brought it back to 2022. And then it was like, okay, yeah, maybe she can do this again. Her backhand return was on fire. It was crazy. It was like every single second serve like went into her strike zone, or she would like move her strike zone to wherever the second serve was landing. And yeah, I mean, that third set, it looks like she could win that 6-1 or 6-2. So huge credit to Iga for coming back. But I mean, that was crazy. Collins not only nearly beat her, but nearly beat her pretty decisively, I think.
Yeah. Some could argue that she maybe should have won, at least like a 6-3 at the end, because Iga got one of the breaks back, was down love 40 at 4-2. She played some really brave tennis as well, though, from that point on, and defended her serve really well. That was a bit of a collapse at 4-1 from Collins. I think she got broken to love.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, but it's it was just it's hard to pinpoint exactly what Collins should have done, because I think at that point, I think Juan Ignacio pointed it out that Iga basically went on lockdown mode. She didn't really make any enforced errors until the end of the set, so it was hard. Collins would have needed to keep her level really high all the time, which understandably she wasn't able to do. I guess more so because of maybe she got nervous rather than she got tired. I don't think that was the case. I think by the time that she got to 4-1 pretty decisively in the third set, I think that maybe the nerves maybe got caught on. It's like it was going to be a pretty big win, especially at the stage of her career, which, by the way, she said she's ending this year.
Yeah, that was a surprise, right? I mean, so I think the game that decided the match really was that 4-2 game in the third set, because like you said, Collins goes up low 40. And then Iga just has this amazing hold where finally she starts serving to the forehand, because she was getting killed by the backhand repeatedly. But she starts serving to the forehand, gets out of 3 break points, and then at deuce, I'm not sure if everyone remembers this, she serves to the forehand and Collins hits back this bullet return that lands on the baseline. It's a great return, and all Iga can do is kind of like block it and reflex it back. And she gets really lucky because the ball, like, it turns into a great accidental drop shot. She didn't try to hit that. She was just reacting, but it turns into a great drop shot. Collins has to run up to it, like, can't really get it back aggressively, and then Iga passes her, and then that made it add, and then she gets the goals. I feel like if that's break point instead, I feel like if it's a break point, maybe Collins gets to 5-2. But I think just the way that point played out, it did have a little feeling of like the universe is on Swiatek's side a little bit. And so and then I think once she got that hold, she started playing with more freedom. Hold easily to get to breaks pretty comfortably, I think, to get to 4-all, holds comfortably to get to 5-4. And then at that point, from Collins' perspective, it's like, where the hell did my lead go? Now I'm the one with my back against the wall. I would have been really impressed if she had been able to survive that. And she got close. Like, she saved a couple match points, really impressive. But I think when the turnaround is kind of that sudden and that extreme, I think it's really, really difficult to do anything.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that part of I guess I keep forgetting like what I wanted to say about. Oh yeah, but like I think after Iga got that hold specifically from lot 40, because she got the break, but she never really felt like that comfortable still. And Collins definitely felt like she kind of gathered herself after getting broken and just like ran right straight back into it. I think Iga definitely still looked pretty lost in that set. She looked pretty hopeless. Like when she went down 4-1, I was just like, I saw this and I was like, well, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm not convinced that this is gonna be like a 6-1 set, but we'll see what happens. I think Iga going to be in that situation again where she just looks hopeless and doesn't know how to fight back, or is she going to be proof that she's going to just be able to keep the ball back in, try to find answers and whatnot. I think the forehand was really getting caught up in the baseline, as you were saying, like the return like right to her feet. And it wasn't that was like one example of things that went well, I guess, because of some luck, but it was quite often that Iga would just kind of either make an unforced error off the forehand, or you would just like loop it back and just like be very attackable shot. So I think this could still be a problem for her throughout the tournament. I don't think she's safe, especially because if Ostapenko seems to be playing well right now. So if she gets to that point, I think Ostapenko probably got the memo that her game is still pretty effective against Swiatek on that kind of court. But yeah, I feel like she got lucky in that maybe at that point when she got the hold, Collins looked a bit more lost than what she did. She still played some really amazing tennis, but at that point, Iga got herself back in her confident mode. And I think one of the commentators said at some point, like, what can Iga Swiatek do to bother Collins' game? and want to say like, well, she's a much better mover, and Collins isn't as great right now, like especially side to side, and you could see it. And I think Iga Swiatek really did great with that, like using her backhand and the forehand, just push her side to side, and especially the backhand just a little flatter. And she really got Collins out of position. So I think that was the tactical change that made a difference in that third set. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was part Swiatek doing some tactical changes and being confident in her game, and part Collins kind of falling apart a little bit, especially in some crucial moments. So yeah, I'm not. It's a match that was good, but it's not a match that I'm convinced that says Iga Swiatek is going to win this tournament.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Although I think the other side of that Ostapenko thing is, let's say Ostapenko loses before that meeting with Iga. Rybakina's out now, and I would have favored Rybakina pretty comfortably actually to beat Iga. So now I think if Swiatek can get past that Ostapenko round, whether she has to play her or not, I think she's and assuming everything is okay physically, I think she would almost have like 1 foot in the final already.
Yeah.
So yeah, who knows? And I think this is also, I feel like there are two ways to look at the match. One is like, yeah, she's just not playing well enough. She's not going to win this tournament. But the other is like, she had this great comeback, escaped a match that she probably should have lost. Now she's going to be playing with house money, and it's just going to like steamroll everyone. And I think that's possible too. But yeah, I don't quite see it. I think Ostapenko was probably going to beat her again.
Yeah. Ostapenko also needs to get through Azarenka, but I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, although that's tough. Azarenka does well in Australia. I forgot that it was those two who were matched up. What I will say is so Coco Gauff is my pick to win.
Yeah.
If it's a final with Iga and Coco, I do not like Coco's chances one bit.
Yeah.
But I think that if it's not that final, like if it's Sabalenka instead, I think that's kind of a coin flip between Swiatek and Sabalenka. Might even slightly favor Sabalenka, and yeah, I think that just that Ostapenko match, I really want to see that, because I think that Collins match that had the risk to become kind of the same match as that one with Ostapenko at the U.S. Open, right? Like Swiatek takes the lead, Ostapenko catches fire, and then Swiatek couldn't do anything. She got bulldozed. And in this match, she was getting bulldozed, and then she fought out of it. And so, and even though Collins was playing so well, peak Collins is not quite the same as peak Ostapenko, I think. So I want to see if Swiatek can do that against Ostapenko. I think, the end of the season, she made that run to get back to number one. It was amazing. But she didn't really have a win in that stretch that convinced me like she's solved this, or she would beat Rybakina next time, or she would beat Ostapenko next time. So I would just really like to see it with my eyes.
Yeah. But how many rounds are we still far from Ostapenko? 2 rounds still. This is 3rd round. Iga Swiatek is playing Noskova today, and she could face Svitolina next round. Excuse me. I do like her chances against both these players, obviously, especially after coming through Collins on fire. She must be feeling pretty good, and as you said, in a way, she's playing with house money. Rybakina's out, so it's like one less problem ahead of her to be anxious about, even though I'm fairly sure that psychologically she handles the future pretty well, like just try to like get this out of her head. But I'm liking her chances to get through to the semifinals at least. And then I don't really see one other than Ostapenko. I don't see much here in the draw.
I will say that Svitolina beat her at Wimbledon last year, and I mean at the time I didn't see that match, and I thought it was kind of a mystifying result, because Iga had gotten through a match there against Bencic that was the kind of one like the one against Collins, where like it's a very narrow escape. And I think after that one, I was like, oh, maybe she'll be playing with house money. And then I think Svitolina beat her, fairly comfortably.
I think it was maybe 6-4, 6-4,
something like that. And so this is hardcore to not grass. So I do think it would go Iga's way, but I don't know, since both her first 2 rounds have been really tough. So maybe maybe it's just going to be one of those tournaments where every opponent is kind of a banana skin.
Yeah, it's definitely not a favorable draw still. It hasn't been from the start, and it hasn't really changed. The only player that really went out of her way is basically just Rybakina. We have
Yeah.
Chen Wen-Zhang here, who's technically supposed to be on her semifinal. So I think that's the one player that I could see causing problems. I think Chen Wen-Zhang, took she didn't take a set off of Iga, I believe, in the Roland Garros, but she played one of the best matches against her. I
Yeah.
don't think maybe 2 years ago.
I think she did take a set actually. Um,
It was definitely a 7-6, but I don't remember.
I think Iga was ahead and had a bunch of set points, and then Zhang won it in a tiebreak, and then I think she had cramps and ended up losing the last 2 sets pretty comfortably, but she did win the first one.
Yeah, but now Zhang is actually playing really well. She had a really good end of season. I think things could turn into her favor as well, and not impossible. But yeah,
Yeah, should we talk about Rybakina a bit, because kind of talking about a big picture in terms of who was the favorite. I feel like going in, I don't know if she was like the favorite like in terms of odds, but I think a lot of people were picking her. Like she was a pretty hot pick, and so I feel like in that context you could say she blew it. Like she lost in the second round, but the match that she lost in the second round was so good and had such a thrilling finish that I think like basically no one is saying that she blew it, because Anna Blinkova played such an incredible tiebreak and saved 6 match points, I think, which is just unbelievable. Were you able to watch that?
I wasn't, unfortunately. I think it was like one of the night matches that I started at 3 a.m. I wasn't able to catch the match highlights even still, but I'm pretty sure the Australian Open actually, for the regions where it's available on YouTube, you can watch the full tiebreak.
Yeah.
So
absolutely do it if you get a chance. I think it's like half an hour long, but yeah, I did that this morning. Like I woke up after, I woke up and after the madness of the previous night and just saw that result, and I was like, what?
Yeah, that's crazy. I think it was like 10. Blinkova had like 10 match points compared to her 10th or something like that.
Something like that. And my favorite detail from that tiebreak is that so I think on one of Blinkova's match points, Rybakina hits a forehand winner down the line that it wasn't like it. I feel like Blinkova could have had a play on it, right? Like she it wasn't a super fast shot and she was out of position, but I feel like if she had completely sprinted for it, she maybe could have gotten there. And then on Rybakina's match point, she has Blinkova on the run. And there's kind of a similar thing where like Blinkova gets pushed into that forehand corner and then Rybakina hits the open court. And this time Blinkova just makes an absolute sprint for it, gets there, runs down a drop shot and hits it hard enough that Rybakina's kind of stretch stab into the open court goes into the net. So I don't know. I just kind of loved that detail of like when it was her match point, she didn't totally go for it. I mean, maybe she couldn't have gotten to this forehand no matter what, but when she was down match point, she just didn't take any chances. Yeah, that was just amazing.
Yeah, there's like survival instinct, right? It's just like, what are you gonna do? Like, unless it's like an extremely so good drop shot, they have absolutely no chance. But if you have any chance of getting there, I think players would just go for it. Like I know I would, and I'm nowhere near a professional level. So
and yeah, I also just want to say a quick word in praise of the 10-point tiebreak. Like that has been working so well for a deciding set. Even if you don't get one that great, like this 22-20, pretty sure I saw longest tiebreak ever at Grand Slam level. But a 10-point tiebreak is just, it's so long that you are going to have at least one momentum swing, right? Like each player, you are going to go down a mini break. Maybe you're already up a mini break when you lose a point on your serve, but it's going to happen. You are not going to win, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 straight points on your serve. And so, so even when a player goes up like 7-1, it's like, it's not quite over, you know, like it maybe it gets back to 7-5 or something. Like the one between Casper Ruud and Max Purcell was a little like that. Ruud got off to a huge lead and then Purcell kind of closed the gap, and it wasn't enough to win, but he hit a couple crazy shots on the way. Like there's this forehands down the line winner that might have gone around the net post, and it just hit the line so perfectly from such a wide position that I'm not a fan of aesthetics in tennis, Andre, or at least not the traditional ones, but just that shot was just so aesthetically pleasing the way it hit the line. It's the kind of shot I'm going to rewatch probably like 15 times this year. Yeah, just a great night of tennis all around.
Sometimes you just succumb to the aesthetics just because the ball trajectory is just so appealing.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. Ball trajectory. I agree with people on the aesthetics. Like
it's just like the Nadal banana shot, one of the most beautiful shots ever.
Dude, I was just literally just thinking about that, and then the other one was that happened recently was in the match between Alicia Parks and Coco Gauff, which Parks really didn't play very well. She it seemed like Gauff's defense just totally kind of got in her head, and so she was on top of some of these points, and then would just miss putaways by a mile because of Gauff's defense. But I think in the second game, like she gets broken in the first game, and then the first point of that next game, like she hits this backhand winner cross court at just such like this insane angle. It didn't make any sense. It's the kind like you see and it's like, was that in? Like that had to have landed out because that angle is not possible. But yeah, she hit one of those, which that was just remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, like coming back to Rybakina, I think that is definitely the definition of an upset that was caused and not like premeditated in the sense of like Rybakina blowing it. It's definitely starting probably to weigh on Rybakina a little bit right now. It's like we are definitely far away from the new big three in the WTA narrative right now, which for the people who caution everybody not to start using this term on them, I think they were probably patting themselves on the back a little bit right now, because I think especially right now Rybakina is going to fall up to number 5 in the world.
I could, so I don't know for sure. I could imagine her dropping further than that because from the final last year to the second round this year, she's going to drop quite a few points, probably 1,000, I would think.
Yeah, I think the regular point that she would lose is from WTA is 1,300 points, so that's quite
okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, like it's going to be interesting to see like what happens in the rest of the season now, because like she's got considerable points to defend at Indian Wells, and then she was defending points in Rome as well. So I think that's probably the most points that she's defending for the rest of the season. But Grand Slam level, I think that's where probably she's not. I guess she's been performing well, but like now it's like the question is if she's going to win another one.
Right. I mean, it is interesting with her because when she's at her best, I think she just looks invincible. Like you remember that match with Sabalenka before this tournament. Was that like a 6-0, 6-3? Like against the player who beat her in the final of the Australian Open last year. So like it was stuff like that I think kind of made her like a popular pick to win this tournament. But there's something missing. I don't know what it is. I didn't pick her to win because I saw some things from her in 3-setters that I didn't love. Like she like 6-1, 6-2 losses and deciding sets. Like the one to Jabeur at Wimbledon last year. Even though I think some of that was influenced by like the sickness at Roland Garros. And then I think I saw someone say on Twitter like she's not that great of a fighter. And I think I read that and I was like, yeah, maybe she's not that great of a fighter. And it feels ridiculous to bring that up in a match where she saved like 9 match points before she got beaten. But I don't know. I think there is something there. Like she's not. I don't know. Like I think she's so good that she wins a lot of close matches, but I don't know if she has that. I don't know. It's like the killer instinct goes away when she's behind, I think. Sometimes. And I don't think that applied for this match, but that was kind of why I didn't pick her to win. So yeah, I think that will be interesting to see like what changes is she going to make. I also think the forehand can be pretty temperamental. Like when she's on again, she kind of just looks invincible to me, but I think there are times when that forehand gets pretty shaky. So yeah, it's I'm sure she's gutted because I think she probably knew she had a great chance to win this tournament. But like I think I had her in the final with Coco. But and yeah, like you said, it's not going to get any easier, right? Because now she's defending Indian Wells. So the sport, man, it's brutal.
Yeah. I think that in a way, like because of her, the invincibility aura, in a sense, like exists a lot for Swiatek, or at least like used to be a lot stronger back when she was like in that super winning streak in 2022. But then like I think you mentioned it that like when she wasn't winning a lot of 3-setters. She was winning a lot of easy straight sets.
Exactly.
So it took a while for Swiatek even to figure out like how to win when things were like not really good.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the one thing that Rybakina is on the way of like finding out on these types of matches. This one particularly, I think we can kind of like put this one aside because a match that you have 6 match points is not really a match that you didn't fight for, and
Right.
you could have. It was a coin flip at that point. Like if both players have this many match points, you can't really toss it as if like it was a match that somebody blew or something like that. It was really a coin flip. It doesn't get any closer than that in tennis. So it's definitely something that we will see in terms of next matches. Like if she were to win this match, we would have been able to assess this a little bit better throughout the tournament. But now we're gonna have to wait until the next stop, which I have no idea which is going to be. Probably Doha or something.
But yeah, I think it's a good point in terms of have like experience winning close matches and fighting like that, and because that's sort of like the frame that I look at players, and sometimes like that didn't make any sense, but I'll explain. Like with remember when Raducanu won the U.S. Open?
Yeah.
And she won all those straight set matches. And it was amazing, and she looks like the best player in the world. So the way I kind of look at that when it's like, okay, how's she going to do in the next tournament is like, so that was an amazing tournament, but not only does she not have a lot of experience fighting, I don't know if she's even played a 3-setter at pro level at that point because she won like 10 straight matches in straight sets. So like you look at that kind of thing, like Rybakina maybe doesn't have a great track record, like winning like a scrap. So if I look at that with someone like Jannik Sinner, who looks amazing right now, finished last year really, really strongly, a lot of people are saying, okay, this is the tournament where he's going to like break through. It's the way I sort of look at it is like, I kind of need to see it first before I predict that it's going to happen, if that makes any sense. Like he, like last year, Caleb, the biggest troll on Twitter, has been doing this recently. Like Sinner lost to Altmaier at the French Open in 5 sets. And so he just, every time someone says something nice about Sinner, he just responds with a clip of Altmaier hitting the ace on match point. Which is the most Caleb thing ever. But so like kind of on the Sinner thing, it's like I absolutely think he can have a breakthrough this tournament, but I'm not going to be surprised if he doesn't have one just because of that track record in terms of like best of 5. He's not there yet. So with Rybakina, maybe that's what we should be looking for now, is like, how is she going to do? Like, it's her best level is not an issue, right? Like that beats everyone. And that's the case for most players. And that's the case with Medvedev, who I got lit up on Twitter for saying bad things about him. But so maybe that's the thing we should be looking for Rybakina. Like, she's not, like, maybe things aren't great if she's just dominating everyone. Things are great if she's like scrapping past players, or if she shows herself to be capable of scrapping past players sometimes.
Yeah. I think right before we head on to the men's side of the draw, I think the opposite side of the draw looks quite interesting because it's opposite in one sense more than in senses more than one, because Sabalenka is cruising through her matches.
Oh my god, she
has
a double eagle.
While Swiatek is being challenged like literally every step of the way, Sabalenka is just like, well, I guess I'm just coming here and just doing my job, and I'll like wait for tomorrow. It's like she's probably eating ice cream at McDonald's between matches because like there's so little effort that she has been put into.
About Sabalenka, like, I mean, so I don't think this, but like for the people who are like WTA is so inconsistent, blah blah blah. Look at like Sabalenka does not get upset at the majors. Like she goes deep every single time now. Wins the Australian Open, French Open semifinal, Wimbledon semifinal, U.S. Open. I am blanking. Final, right?
Final.
So and now it's like she's blown her first 3 opponents out of the water. Like, if you want consistency at like the big matches, like look at her. I think the only reason we talk about like, oh, she's a choker is like that's kind of the only thing you can criticize her for at this point. I think I really would love to see that Goff Sabalenka semifinal. It's a rematch of the U.S. Open final. Sabalenka is going to be out for revenge, because she did kind of blow that final, right? Like Goff's defense was amazing, but Sabalenka up a set and just in the third set really kind of wilted. And so I think she's going to be looking to get that back. I think Goff is going to be super confident because she knows she can beat Sabalenka now. I would really love to see that.
Yeah, and I think second week is definitely going to be the week for us to see where Sabalenka's really at in terms of being challenged, because her next opponent is Anisimova,
Yeah, my God.
who's had a pretty big resurgence in this tournament in particular. She has been playing fantastically well. She has gone through a bunch of stuff, mental health issues, depression, like the loss of, I think her father died last year, or so she was out of the game for like 8 months, I believe I read it. So um, it's good to see her back, and she's playing really well. So excited to see this Sabalenka Anisimova match. After that, it's got a pretty interesting Krejcikova Andreeva quarterfinal lined up for whoever comes out of this, and then we're going to have like a Goff who's playing Magdalena Frech, and then on the last round 4 is Kostyuk Timofeeva, who are two kind of wild cards right now. Like they
yeah. And can we talk about Andreeva as well? So not only does she beat admittedly pretty off on Jabeur very easily, but against Perry, she's so she loses the first set 6-1, wins the second 6-1, and I think, okay, she's figured it out. And then she goes 5-1 in the third. I was doing something else, so I just, like kept watching my show or whatever, and I was like, oh, it's over. And then I think I opened my phone and I saw people tweeting, and I was like, wait, no, that match ended, right? Like that was another 6-1. And I see it's like back to 5-all. And then it's back to 6-5. She's serving for it. She's 30-15. And then Perry breaks her, wins 3 straight points to get to a tiebreak, and Andreeva holds on and wins that tiebreak. Like, she's 16 years old, man. Like, the poise is insane. And I hate to, use the cliche, like Andy Murray and Liam Brody had a disagreement of like, is it mental strength or stability, whatever. Like, just to be that calm at 16 under that much pressure, I don't understand it. I'm 22 and I could not do anything close to what she did. Even if you give me the skill of like an Ash Barty. So yeah, props to her. I'm really excited to follow her. I like her game a lot. She's got really good court sense. Great backhands down the line. She doesn't get as much pace on her shots as maybe other players, but like the shape on them is really good. If you know what I mean, like her down the line shots are like down the line. They don't tail towards the center. She holds her shots very well, so it's not entirely clear where she's going to hit the ball. Like it's a bit of that Djokovic thing where where Djokovic hits like a pretty ordinary cross court backhand, and it just flies past the opponent because the opponent thought he was going to go down the line and is just like standing still. I think she's got a little bit of that. Have you gotten a chance to watch any of her yet?
I saw some of her match against Jabeur. It was a little bit demoralizing, so I stopped watching after a while. So I love her. I really like her shots, especially the backhand. I think, she doesn't play like she's new to the tour. She plays like as if she's like a very experienced player. But yeah, I think her forehand is a little loopy sometimes, but I don't see that much as a problem. Coco Gauff won a Grand Slam with her forehand, so like why not? We'll see what happens. I think there's going to be a very interesting. I think that will be Goff's opponent, right? I believe. Yeah, but and
that'd be a hell of a match. I would love to see that.
Me too. 2 teenagers as well, like at the Australian Open. I think they will be fantastic. She also saved a match point against Perry, and when Andreeva was serving at 3-5, she was 30-40 down.
Yeah.
So.
And Goff is one of the only people in the world who knows what it's like to break out when you're 15, because Goff was also 15 when she had that run at Wimbledon 5 calendar years ago now. It's insane. But so I mean, not that that'll have an impact on the match, but it's interesting. Like 2 of the youngest breakouts in recent memory.
Yeah, who knows? Like they have enough years ahead of them that it could turn into a big rivalry if they started like consistently meeting in big matches. Andreeva's a little lower ranked right now, so she would definitely catch Goff in the earlier rounds, but I think she's poised to go up in the rankings soon enough, like maybe break into the top 20 soon.
Yeah.
First half this year. Yeah.
Yeah, like with runs like this, was that third round that she won against Ferry? Is she in round 4 now?
Yeah, this is round 4. She's in the second week.
Okay, I mean that's a lot of points right there. Like, it doesn't. When I say it doesn't take that much to get to the top 20, of course it takes a lot. It takes like a lifetime of hard work, etc., etc. Like we know how hard tennis is, but in terms of like if you look at what Ben Shelton did, like he essentially got to where he is with like 2 great runs at majors, Australian Open, US Open. So from that standpoint, like Andreeva is like halfway there, right? Like it like she gets 1 or 2 rounds further, she's like, like that ranking is going to skyrocket. And when I say like 2 of the youngest breakouts in recent memory, I know like Capriati, Hingis, like I am aware of these players. So just in case anyone wants to come after me for that.
Yeah. I'm excited to see, like, and she's also really funny, like in press conferences. I believe Laura Robson was interviewing her or something, and then she said, "Oh, like I feel like I'm more mature this year," and she's like, "Oh, you're 16." And she's like, "Yeah, like, but last year I was 15, right?" So
yeah.
So it's a funny personality. She seems to be really aware of where she is, like how big this stage is as well. So I think that can only be good for her. Like I don't think liking, enjoying, and just being familiar with the big stage, with the screams of people and like the biggest stadiums in the world, it's only got to be a good thing. So that means that she's going to be in the conversations, I think. So yeah, I'm excited.
Andy Murray approved.
Andy Murray approved. She's so funny as well about that. She said she's going to try to print it or something and like carry with her. That was hilarious.
Yeah. I love Murray's tweets, by the way. Like he doesn't tweet often, but like most of the time when he does, that's a great point, Andy. And because of his experience, you can't really disagree with him, even if you don't agree with his points. You know what I mean? So.
And that's the important part about thinking before you say something on the internet, right? So you don't have to tweet once every 2 minutes. Like think a little bit before you post something.
I feel like you're talking to me because I have done a lot of that.
No, there's other people that that do this quite often. But
did you see the Pavy thing, by the way, where he like criticized the journalist for asking Zverev about the trial, and then like there was a tweet I think like that same day that was like, if I was a journalist, I would ask the questions. I wouldn't kiss up to anyone. It was like, oh my god, man, he has to be a parody.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I say people should think a little before, because yeah, at that point, and since we already started, like let's just move on, I guess, to the men's side of the draw. Of course, the women's draw is amazing. We're going to come back to it later when the tournament is over. But yeah, the men's draw has complications of its own. But I think definitely it's been the worst part of the men's tournament this year has been the whole Zverev fiasco. Yeah, you're mute somehow.
Sorry, yeah. It's like a cloud hanging over everything. And every tournament, I thank the lucky stars that he like was not given that killer instinct, and that he hasn't won one yet, because I think if that happens, it's just going to be terrible. Watching like the reaction to it from the people who have not handled the domestic violence thing well. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that Break Point episode is a disgrace. I haven't watched it. I'm not going to watch it, but I've heard that he was portrayed as like the hero. They didn't mention that stuff at all. And the thing that came to mind for me was like Netflix is trying to create new fans of tennis. Like, so you're going to try to create fans of this guy who are then going to look him up and see that like he's going to be put on trial for being credibly accused of domestic violence by like, he's been accused by 2 former partners. So like you're going to create this image of this guy, and then people are going to find out on their own because you didn't tell them that he sucks. Like I think that's pretty awful. But yeah, you have anything to add? I don't have much of a desire to spend a lot of time on this.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I do think that it's really sad that like all the things that have been allowed to happen, it's almost as if it happens exactly because of, the situation that he's in off the court. And it's not parallel in that sense. Like it almost looks like it's related. It's almost like they're doing it on purpose because it's kind of ridiculous. Like tonight, even as we speak, as we're recording, he has been, and we were talking this off camera, but he's been scheduled to play on Rod Laver. Let me pull out the schedule real quick here. He's been scheduled to play on Rod Laver, last match of the day, right after Iga Swiatek, who, by the way, has been vocal about this. Well, not vocal, but she's the only person who really gave an answer about this, like this proper.
Shout out to Kazakina as well on Twitter.
Exactly. And he's playing, I think Alex Michelsen, I think that's his name. So a guy who's, up and coming, next gen and whatnot, but he's not a superstar.
He's not the reason that match is on Rod Laver.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have on Margaret Court, Felix Auger-Aliassime versus Daniel Medvedev. Even Victoria Azarenka versus Elena Ostapenko. Like and Medvedev, Auger-Aliassime, mind you, was like one of the best matches of 2022.
Yeah.
On Rod Laver Arena at the Australian Open at a quarterfinal. Medvedev, a guy who actually reached the final of the Australian Open twice. Yeah. What is the problem? It's like that's the one thing. It's like it almost looks like it's on purpose. Like at this point, like for me, that's the thing. It's like not only they are listening, but they're acting contrary to what people are saying. That's what it feels like. I don't know if they're doing this, but that's what it feels like, because it definitely feels like they're rubbing it on our faces that we can't really do anything about it.
Right, I agree, because from the tennis standpoint, like Zverev he wasn't what he was built up to be, right? Like they tried to make him the next golden boy. He hasn't won a major. He hasn't been in a major final since the one that he choked away to Dominic Thiem 3 years ago. He has this massive serve, and yet when he has hit a second serve on a big point, he loses his mind and like babies it in or double faults. Like he's not the next guy. He's not that golden child. We have one of those now in Alcaraz, and we have his rival in Sinner. Like you don't need to market Zverev anymore. I don't understand why, I don't know. It's like he's giving you the option, like with his tennis, to like just let him fade into the background. And of course his personality, like he's such a he's like an inflated opinion of himself. So he's like, oh, I deserve all these things, which like, no, you don't. But yeah, I don't understand why he's been given these opportunities. Like if, I just don't get it. But he's, when I saw him in that close match with Klein, like I figured he would win just because that's what he usually does. He gets dragged into these unnecessarily close matches and he does win them, but then he also loses when he gets to the tough competition. I think that's going to happen again. So, yeah, hopefully we won't have to talk about it much more. But yeah, just the way it's been handled is atrocious. So, but I do think the people who have been speaking up about it have been doing a great job. I hope they keep speaking up about it. I hope others who are not start to speak up about it, and then maybe that'll eventually result in something.
Yeah, and just to go back, the silver lining, I think I said in the beginning, is that at least we can hope that there's like at least like probably a 0.5 chance that he's going to win this tournament. Like Djokovic is playing, even though he's been scraping by, it's Djokovic. Then we also have Golden Boys, Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. Those have been playing extremely well, especially I'd say Yannick Sinner. I don't think he has been, because one of the biggest problems about like ending the season the way he did is how you're going to start the new one. So I think he did really well this year. I think it's been, I watched some of the bias match yesterday, and my God, what a blowout. It looked like a junior was playing on that court. It was ridiculous. It's just that Sinner's neutral shots are just so potent and so precise, and just the shape of his shots is so incredibly perfect that Baez just needed to like raise his intensity just to keep up with the Sinner's just like regular rally ball. I think he tweeted about that as well. and it's insane. Like I feel like if Sinner keeps playing like this, it's going to be a tough one for whoever is standing in front of him. And Alcaraz, haven't been able to watch him still on the Australian Open, but he seems to be doing well. I think he's in a way back to his old self of like just being like extremely pumped up about things and whatnot. Have you been able to catch some of Alcaraz?
Yeah, so I don't know if I've watched enough of him that I should be saying this, and maybe people are gonna disagree with me, but I'm a little concerned about him. I think I haven't loved what I've seen. I think like I feel like something is kind of up with his forehand. Like he, when I think of his forehand, I think of him hitting the absolute piss out of every single ball. And he's kind of been hitting more nothing shots than I remember. At least than I remember him hitting when he's at his best. That match with Sonego, man, he was a tiebreak away from going to a fifth. Sonego, like, solid player, doesn't give up, but I don't know. Even when the second set went to a tiebreak, or when it was as close as it was, I think I went to bed at like 5-all in the second set. I was kind of like, I don't know, man. Alcaraz is he doesn't look as good as I would like him to look. Maybe that's the fan in me talking, because I do like him and I did pick him to win. But and he'll raise his level when he has to. I think like that Cincinnati last year, he did not look good that tournament, and then he's got championship point to beat Djokovic in straight sets. So when it matters, I think he will go up a gear. But I don't know. I'm a little concerned. Some people are like, I think he's going to lose to Tommy Paul. I don't think Tommy Paul can beat him in 5 sets. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't see it in his game. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I think I don't love Alcaraz's chances right now. I'm sticking by my pick, and maybe he goes up a gear. But I've seen a couple of things. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think he's quite there right now.
Yeah, I think he started doing this a bit last year. So I noticed that he wasn't really like firing up like his forehand as he normally does. So yeah, I think Alcaraz last year showed a bit of lack of form in this forehand, and I'm not sure if he was just like too tentative about it. He wasn't just the fearless force on the court that I got used to seeing. I think it was like looping up a bit too many forehands, just trying to like find a decent rally shot. Maybe that's a part of the strategy in a way, just instead of just like going for super powerful forehands all the time, which seemed to be working. So I don't know exactly why he needed to change that. Maybe injuries, maybe to prevent injuries. But trying to find like I do think that maybe if he needs to find like a rally shot, I think he needs to pick chances to let it rip on the forehand still, because it's his main weapon. Like there's no reason to like just like wipe it out of his arsenal. It's like probably the stupidest thing to do. So like I feel like if you have a weapon like that, which by the way is one of the reasons, if not the main reason, why his drop shot is so good. So like if you erase that, like you make your opponents coming closer to the baseline, your drop shot is not as effective. They're able to like just hit the ball a little bit closer to the baseline, which rushes Alcaraz's forehand as well. So it's not something that he wants to be doing. So it's something that I was concerned a little bit about him. Like last year, I wasn't really sure why. Maybe if it's to prevent injury, that's okay. But yeah, let's see what happens. Like when he faces like opponents that will really make him get to the level that he needs to be at. And I don't think that's very healthy either for him to be pushing himself like too far in 5 setters, in best of fives before things get serious in the quarters and semis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's a great point of like why, if it is a choice, I don't understand. Like and yeah, if you look at that U.S. Open loss to Medvedev, what was the problem? It was that like he didn't have a great forehand today. Like Medvedev could like kind of match him forehand to forehand a lot of the time, or at least more than was ideal for Alcaraz. So yeah, I hope that shot comes back to the extent that he needs it. And yeah, also like because it was working for him, right? It wasn't like he was hitting 40 or 50 forehand on force errors a match when he was hitting the crap out of every single ball. So yeah, hope that comes back. Like I said, I don't really see him losing early. I think that Tommy Paul match, if it happens, is potentially tricky, but I feel like worst case, it's like a tight 4-setter, maybe 5 with a couple tense moments. But yeah, I don't know. As of now, I have him like losing in the late rounds. I don't know. I still kind of think he'll get to the final. Because it is Medvedev in the semi, and I don't know. I feel like Medvedev. Do you want to talk about Medvedev a little bit?
I was about to say let's just move on. Let's just do Medvedev now.
Sure, because I had some controversial tweets about him that you might have seen. What are your thoughts on
him? First of all, I think people on Twitter are very incendiary. Somebody said like at some point like what was a super famous tweet? Somebody said like, "Oh, I really like croissants." And it's like, so that means you don't like sandwiches? It's like, that's not what I said.
Essentially.
Yeah, so it's like it's that thing. I feel like what you said, probably because of the fact that I know you a little bit more than other people on Twitter that were just coming across a tweet like that, especially the fans. But I understood what you meant, that like
it's down on
like Medvedev is a player that like when he peaked back in 2021, even back in 2019, he was like doing so well. I was really big on him. I thought like, well, maybe Medvedev's gonna dominate hardcourts until like for the next like I don't know 5 years when another 3-4 U.S. Open, Australian Opens. That hasn't happened, and I think that the thing is, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Partially because of the injury that he suffered. I think he had a hernia. Partly because of the extreme disappointment of losing to Nadal in the Australian Open 2022. Maybe all those things are factors. He did a super good comeback last year. I think he did as well as we were sort of expecting him to. It's like we were kind of lower expectations a bit on him, especially after Alcaraz came to the scene. But now it's like, okay, now your weaknesses are all exposed. Your strengths are really strong, but then what now? What are you gonna do about this? And then like now, instead of having just to deal with Djokovic, you now have to deal with Alcaraz, who is on your way,
and Sinner, who he's lost to
exactly, and Sinner as well, who is growing, by the way, becoming like a lot bigger now. He's beaten him, as I said, like twice last year, and those two guys have games that, especially Alcaraz, has a game that is consistently bothering Medvedev. The serve and volley, the drop shots is something that Medvedev has a hard time to deal with. So I don't know. I think Medvedev is a still solid top 3 player as he is right now. I
think Sinner replaces him pretty soon. Actually,
he could, but I think he's in the conversation still. And I think we're going to see him more of Medvedev in semifinals, but I think for him to win another Grand Slam, I think the draw is going to have to work in his favor a little bit. I think players are going to need to be upset early. I don't even think he has what it takes to beat Djokovic anymore. But yeah, especially in the Australian Open. Like I feel like Australian Open is like I could only basically pick Alcaraz to beat Djokovic right now, and even that is on the off chance.
Yep, I'm completely with you. I agree with everything you said. Like I had this kind of frustrating exchange with someone on Twitter when I said that, and they were sort of like, because I like I said, I agree with you. And when he was at his best, I don't know, I kind of saw something in him where like we talked about with Rybakina, I think the issue was like he looks great at his best. When he's not at his best, he really struggles. And during that phase, I thought his peak was amazing, but I also saw these adjustments that he made, like the way he pushed that U.S. Open final to 5 sets in 2019 after he was going to lose in straights, and the way he was down a set and under pressure to Dominic Thiem at the World Tour Finals, and he wins that match with his net game. I don't know. I kind of saw enough of that, and like the Cincinnati final against Djokovic in 2019, where he's down a set and then he starts hitting like massive second serves. And he just like serves Djokovic off the court. I saw enough things like that where I was like, he's going to be really, really good. And then then he wins the U.S. Open in 2021, and not that there weren't disappointments along the way, but he wins that, and then he's on his way to winning the next major too, which people don't really do. You don't win 2 straight. Osaka did it. I think others have done it in the past, but like that doesn't happen. And so I said like, yeah, when he looked certain to win his second straight, I would have said, oh, he'll win 5 or something. And someone was like, and I was totally wrong. And someone was like, I want to know why you thought that. And I was like, well, I'm admitting to being wrong. I just thought he looked really great. And they were like, oh, well, like, do you know how unprecedented that is in history? Like, you don't win a major before you're 24, or like or like you're not ranked when you're a teenager, and then you go on to win 5. And it was like, well, not really thinking of it from that perspective. It was just like I saw this player in front of me and I got this feeling like he's gonna win a lot, you know? And I don't, is that crazy? Like if he, during that Australian Open final in 2022, when it looks like he was gonna win, if someone had said to you over under 5 majors in his career, what would you have said?
I think it's tough. I think I could see his level is consistent enough that if he had won that Australian Open, I wouldn't say why. I'd say why not. Like I think he had like all chances that he could have maybe won the 2022 US Open as well, defended his title. Where and then Australian Open 2023 would have been a little bit more difficult because should Djokovic come back and won, which he did last year. I think it would have been just a little bit more difficult, but I think things could have been different. It's a lot of people like when they say stuff as in, just like, well, now like, but back then you couldn't know. So it's like you're talking in hindsight. Like everybody knows everything in hindsight, so it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, is it unprecedented? Maybe like expecting people to win 5 Grand Slams is always a tough task. Andy Murray didn't win 5 Grand Slams. Stan Wawrinka didn't win 5 Grand Slams. So many other players were good, great even, like couldn't win 5 Grand Slams. So I think when you push up to that mark, it's definitely ambitious. So in a way, maybe you were too high on Medvedev, but at the same time,
but I wasn't crazy, right? Like it wasn't.
No, yeah,
and like that. I don't know, that was sort of how it seemed like some people were reacting. They were like, I can't believe you're so disappointed in him. And I'm like, well, yeah, I had these really high standards, and they were like, you had like standards that were that high, and I was kind of like, yeah, I feel like a lot of people did, right? Like I think I mean, like he wins. Let's say he wins that second one. That's 2 straight. He's 25 or 26 at that point.
Yeah.
2 hardcore majors a year. He's probably got another, if he's lucky, another decade before he really declines physically. Like that's, I don't know. I didn't think it was that much of a stretch to say he could win 3 more. After that, but I don't know. Some people seems to think that it was, and then some people seems to think that he's a lot better now than I seem to think he is. But I don't know that. Well, you mentioned his comeback year last year, and I briefly got high on him again when he was winning all those little tournaments after the Australian Open, and then he wins Rome. And he's notorious for losing his head on clay. And then he wins Rome, and he beats Tsitsipas and Rune in straight sets, 7-5, 7-5, 7-5, 7-5. And I'm thinking like, okay, he's turned the corner. And then what does he do? He loses in the second round of Roland Garros. And like that stretch after the Australian Open, it was great. He beat Djokovic in Dubai, like he won all those tournaments. But what happened at the Australian Open? He lost in the third round to Seb Korda in straight sets. And I don't know, there's just been enough of that where I just have to admit, like he's really not the guy who I thought he could be. Like, and I don't know, I've seen enough now of him kind of failing to adapt to the serve and volley that I feel somewhat comfortable saying like that's not going to change. And so that was sort of what I was saying on Twitter, was like I had this picture of him in my head as this all-time great, and I'm glad because I'm pretty disappointed with where he is now, and I don't know, maybe I expressed that in a way that like you said, got some incendiary reactions, but I don't know, I don't think it was that crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's always making bold predictions is exactly this, right? It's like bold predictions. Like you had like some truth to base yourself on. Like just Medvedev was playing really well, and to be honest, like the Australian Open match was an aberration of a final in a way, because like how do you go on to lose a match like that? I mean, definitely Nadal played really well, but it's very uncommon. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and the thing
things
we
like
don't
that.
talk about, sorry to cut you off. But the thing we don't talk about anymore is how good he looked early in that match. Like I think he broke Nadal at love twice in a row. Like he looks like a killer in the first set.
Yeah,
And the second set, he was off, like he got broken, but he came back and won it in that tiebreak with this really great defensive point on set point. And so I was sort of like, okay, like he's got the peak level, and he worked through those lapses to win the second set, even though
yeah,
Nadal still should have won it. But
yeah,
I was watching it and I was like, yeah, he's exactly like he's doing everything I wanted him to do, and then it all just kind of went away.
yeah. And I think particularly, I think his confidence took a little bit of a hit, like especially, and I think it's never really been the same since. Like sometimes he shows some of that confidence. Sometimes he shows some of the old Medvedev. I think when he did the little dancing when he beat Tsitsipas in Rome was as close to vintage Medvedev as you can get nowadays. But yeah, I feel like for him specifically on against certain volleyers, like he definitely needs to be at a level which he was back in 2021, where his return game is ridiculously good, like just insane. I remember like some of his returns that he was making back in the 2021 Canadian Open, especially in the final against Opelka. He was just so far away, but he was like just like putting the ball wherever he wanted. Like
Yeah,
serve and volley was not an issue, but now he's just not returning. Maybe not as well. Maybe he's trying to like keep the ball as somewhat like deeper. He's hitting on the net like a few more times. Like it's not his peak level as he used to be. And he was at that peak level when he faced Alcaraz, and that's the reason why he beat him, because the return was just ridiculous on against Alcaraz in that semifinal. So I think that's what he needs to be. But like, can he keep that level high and consistently enough? I mean, that's a question that he's gonna have to answer himself. Like he got in some serious trouble 2 days ago, I think. So
yeah, I guess Savori.
yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly what I was wrong about. Is like exactly like you said. I watched him stand at the back wall and hit these amazing angles. Like I guess it was the thing like with the one-handed backhands where like you watch it hit a few winners and it's like, oh, this is an amazing shot, but it's like but they only do that so often. I don't know. I felt like I had watched Medvedev hit enough of those angles that I was like, he doesn't even have to stand in. He can stand all the way back there and still pass you.
yeah,
Like he hit these around the net return winners, and that the one on the set point against Nadal in the U.S. Open final in the fourth set. You remember Nadal hits this out wide serve and tries to serve and volley, and Medvedev is like a mile outside both lines and just hits it down the line right into the corner. It's one of the best returns I've ever seen. And yeah, like I still see him hit that shot. I'm like the one where you the player tries to serve and volley behind the wide serve on the deuce side, and you hit the cross court forehand past them. He hit that on the match point of the match he beat Djokovic in Cincinnati. I felt like I had seen him do that enough that I was like, he can do this if he has to. And I was wrong. He can do it sometimes, but not often enough. Like he lost to Djokovic in straight sets in that U.S. Open final. And it feels weird that I'm being this negative about someone who just beat Carlos Alcaraz in that semi, but I think that final kind of disillusioned me for good against Djokovic, where it was like he couldn't even take a set. You knew Djokovic was going to serve and volley because he did it against you in the Paris final in 2021 to great success. You knew that was going to happen. Like you had time to figure out exactly what kind of returns you were going to have to hit, and you couldn't hit them. So he's still a great player. He's third in the world. He's but my friends at Open Era, I think both picked him to win this tournament. Like he's got backers. He like I like his personality. When he's not throwing things or yelling at umpires. And I like still when he peaks, I catch myself going like, oh, he could do all these things, but yeah, that's just what those tweets were about. I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, yeah, I think I was wrong about the things he could do. So I apologize to the God. I sound like I'm apologizing for something that like offended people. I don't know. I'm sorry if the tweet like made you feel bad or if you think I was being overly harsh, but I don't know. I stick by it.
yeah. And now that we've come to it, I think there's only one player that we really should talk about. I guess the one player that is the X factor in Australia. Novak Djokovic.
Is he the X factor, or is he like the constant factor in Australia?
I guess the constant factor, really. You're right. So he's the one player that, he steps in Australia. If he doesn't get deported, that he's probably gonna win it. So
I shouldn't be laughing at that, but yeah, he's had an interesting run so far. What do you?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Novak's time in Melbourne in 2024?
I hate first rounds from Novak Djokovic because it's like they don't mean anything. Like if this one means something, it's gonna be a rarity in his career. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, I feel like maybe he lost too many sets already. You'd expect him to lose maybe one, which he did in the first round. 4-hour match, like, oh my gosh, that was brutal. So I also wasn't able to watch any of his matches because he's only been playing a night session, which means it's super early mornings for me here in Canada. So it's tough to gauge. But also, I mean, is age catching up a little bit to him? Maybe his legs aren't exactly as they used to be. But Djokovic also is really great at like just managing his own level of energy. So maybe these sets aren't really anything. Maybe the time that he spends on court isn't really anything, because he picks the right games to win, the right points to win, and the right moments to run for his life. So I think that he's good enough to do that. So yeah, I'm definitely have to wait and see like the next opponent that is a seeded opponent, like a high seed. For him to to play against and do something about it. He's playing Manarino next, which should be interesting.
I think that's going to be an easy one. Manarino has played 3 5-setters in a row.
Yeah, that's definitely going to play a role in it. So I guess the next time that we are really going to see something out of Djokovic is likely going to be Tsitsipas or Fritz, but those ones are the history is tough, but. Yeah,
say 2 players who are historically great and not just pushing but beating Novak Djokovic, right?
Exactly. But yeah, I think I want to see him playing against Sinner, and that's like in the semifinals. That's in the semifinals, but I want to see him playing against Sinner before I actually can say there's no way anybody else is beating Djokovic in this tournament.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe if it seems like my criticisms of Medvedev are a little like angry, I feel like this is part of why is like the only players I care about Djokovic playing now are Sinner and Alcaraz, and Medvedev was one of them, and he's not anymore. Yeah, I think the age thing, like he is declining a little bit, right? Like where he used to get gassed in like the second set, and now it kind of happens immediately after there's a long rally. He's got physical issues again, so this run has already been more hairy than his title was last year. But it's not by enough to make a difference yet. And it seems like he's also already doing the thing where he looks like remember 2021 when he had the ab thing? And
yeah.
He had some really, really like tough matches. Like the one to Zverev, he really should have lost that one because he loses the first. He's down. I think he's down like 0-3, 15-40 in the third, wins that 6-4, and then he's down at break again in the fourth, saves the set point there. Like he really easily could have lost that one. So I feel like we're seeing something closer to that this year than we are seeing like what happened last year where he sort of just bulldozed everyone. But I think the thing is also happening where like things look really tough early and then they start to get better. Even though in theory, and this is why people accuse him of faking injuries, like in theory, if you've got a physical issue and you're playing tennis, the further you get, the tougher it's going to get. But with him, it's kind of the opposite sometimes. And to be clear, I'm not accusing him of anything. It's just, I think it's just that is what raises a few eyebrows. Is like what he does sort of defies the conventional wisdom in so many ways in his career because he's been amazing. But
yeah,
look, and so like, because he beat Echeverry Straits. And if you watch him play a 4-hour first round match, conventional wisdom is going to tell you that person is probably not going to win this tournament, right? But yeah, it's like you said, the ones that matter are the ones against Sinner and Alcaraz. If he loses to anyone else, it's probably going to be because of a physical issue. I honestly think if he loses to Sinner, physical issues are probably going to play a role there as well. Like the way I imagine that match is like if Djokovic is healthy enough, he's going to do the thing where he goes up 3-0 immediately. He's going to come out with a tactic that Sinner isn't expecting. Like it's probably going to be like peppering the forehand really hard again. Sinner's going to get a little tight. First set's going to go by. Second set will be like a tight 7-5 or something for Djokovic. Maybe Sinner pinches the third set, but I don't know. I see Djokovic winning that one. I think though, like who can take him out is like Alcaraz at his best.
Yeah, I might be running the risk of being too high on Sinner, but I just feel like it might be in a good spot right now. I feel like if there is a moment where Sinner could take advantage of his current confidence and momentum, it would be right now to try to get a breakthrough in the Australian Open.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still rough. I mean, yeah, like Djokovic is like he's not somehow he's a player that we don't really know what to expect, but like not in the sense that like we expect him to lose, but we expect him to win so much that like,
right.
I really want to see where he's at before I can tell somebody's gonna beat him.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I just don't know. I don't feel like any like logic says that he shouldn't lose to anybody essentially. But then like I need to see it at any match to see how he's doing, see like if the competition really coming up to his level. Are they not? Is Sinner really playing that well that he's going to like challenge Djokovic in Australia to the point of, almost winning? Who knows? So yeah, I feel like that's Djokovic. It's always keep an eye on him, but do never ever count him out, especially in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of like, is the field catching up to him? Again, outside Sinner and Alcaraz, I just don't see it. Like I don't want to be disrespectful to Fritz or Tsitsipas, but hearing you talking about the draw and it's like, yeah, in the quarters he'll get one of them. It's just like a little bit depressing almost because I know those guys can't beat him. They've tried so many times and like not only do they fail repeatedly, they're not even getting closer anymore. Tsitsipas has lost, is it 11 straight, 10 straight to him?
Something like that.
It's not. I don't know. It just doesn't make me want to see that match a whole lot. Not that what I want matters, but it's just, yeah, I don't see a lot of suspense in that one. Like the most interesting thing in that matchup is like, oh, how injured is Djokovic? Because that's the only thing that would put the result in doubt.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like Tsitsipas could serve at like, or Fritz could serve at like 90%, and it wouldn't make a difference in the end. And I feel that way with most players on tour. So I do want to give kudos to Prismic for like that amazing test he gave Djokovic in the first round. This guy's 18 years old.
Yeah,
he drew out like the pusher Djokovic. Like if you get enough balls back and you make it enough of a struggle, and Djokovic doesn't want to just go for winners, like you can get a version of him that kind of plays like these pushy long rallies. Not to use the word pushing in a derogatory way, but. And yeah, like Prismic played that really well. And then he was down 4-0 and in the fourth and got a break back. And I think he even saved like 5 match points before the end. And props to Popperin as well, who I'm sure is kicking himself for not taking one of those set points to go up 2-1. This is kind of what I mean when I say like Djokovic is declining a bit. Like usually you don't see him get pushed that hard, when he has his iffy match. It's like he'll drop a set. But I was surprised to see him go that close to going down 2-1 in the second round. It's usually not that extreme. I don't know if it's ever been that extreme since like 2005, but or since 2017 when Istomin beat him. But yeah, who knows? I don't know. I'm sticking with my Alcaraz pick, but Djokovic, I probably like his odds better than anyone else's to win right now.
Yeah, I think I picked Djokovic in our podcast with the more amusing. Essentially because you picked Alcaraz, I wanted to pick Alcaraz, but I just wanted to pick Alcaraz to be different. So
exactly,
I was not going to be different if I picked Alcaraz at that point because it would be 3-1. So I picked Djokovic, which is my actual logical conclusion to this tournament. Djokovic winning in his 25th Grand Slam.
Yeah,
holy crap! 11th Australian Open. At that point, you would almost believe, could he get to 14?
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, it's
I don't think so. He'd be. Oh,
be like almost 40 years old. Like, come on.
Yeah, but not 40 yet. So
Yeah. I mean, Federer almost won Wimbledon at like 39, wasn't it? So
I think he was 37.
was he?
Yeah. Or yeah, I think he was almost 38. But yeah, I mean it's not outside the realm of possibility, right? Like he makes us pay for counting him out. So yeah, I just hope that either the match, I hope that the matches with Sinner and Alcaraz happen, and I hope that at least one of them is a genuinely good match where there are moments where you don't really know who's going to win. I think that might be a little too much to hope for, but that's what I'm hoping for the match.
Yeah. Yeah, excited for the second week as well. I think that both men and women draws are coming together nicely. I think that there are obviously different narratives on both sides, different storylines, different permutations, different focuses. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, as all Grand Slams are very much. So yeah, excited to see what happens. And yeah, thanks so much for joining in. For you, the listener, you can follow us on Twitter at Tennis and Bagels. I believe that's just a name because I don't even know my own handles anymore. But yeah, my own handle is definitely at Rollenberg Andre. Owen is at Tennis Nation because I tag him a lot in messages, so I know his handle by heart. You can also follow Vansh B2K. Well, Vansh B2K is his handle, but Vansh is a fellow podcaster who's a bit too busy right now with Tennis One. Go give Tennis One a follow.
Doing his data analyzing at Tennis One is cool for us now. No, I'm kidding. Many congrats on the gig, folks.
Yeah, he's a pretty good job. And also go back and listen to our predictions at the Marine Wheeling podcast. We're also going to leave a link in the description here. We had me, Owen, and Claire and Peter from the Marine Wheeling podcast. Yeah, it was a ton of fun, and you're going to be able to see what we said about, general predictions on the matches and what was going to happen. So yeah, thanks so much for listening. I'll see you guys next time.